where did you guys go awry? And, you know, I thought he was an idiot anyway. And so I said, let me tell you something. I know what we did. I've just traveled around America. We're ready for this. It'll take some time. Well, boy, let me just say this to you. John Lennon was one of the most famous people in the bloody world. He bought 2 tickets to every performance for 1 year in Leicester Square and gave them away. How's that? Do you need to say anything more about it?
Yeah.
So the reaction from people suddenly must have changed your life. Suddenly you became the focus of people's interest. Did people start to, ask you what the film was all about, and how many times have they asked you ever since?
The common question is, what was Stanley like? I've had people look at me and say, that's the most religious film I've ever seen. Well, none of us were religious. Well, I'm not. You're not, are you? No, Stanley. I didn't know what to answer.
Yeah, but we also experienced, you remember the nun who was there, who thought it was one of the most religious experiences you'd ever had.
That's right.
It covered the waterfront.
I think she wanted to seduce Hal.
So we've got a microphone over that side there, so I'll just ask one more question. Anybody else who wants to ask some questions, you can start to line up there if you like.
No, they're just winding their watch.
Tell us about some of the sort of other things that happened in terms of trying to reproduce visual effects that might be done nowadays.
Well, there was one, I hate to spoil, I don't want to spoil it for the people who haven't seen it, but I don't think it will. It's not that kind of, it's not like it's a mystery, you don't know, it's not a whodunit. There's a key scene where the computer HAL will not allow my character back into the ship, and I have to go to the emergency exit or entrance and set off some explosive bolts, which propels me into a vacuum, and my character is holding his breath because he's going to die because he's forgotten his helmet, and he pulls the lever and oxygen. Well, how that was done was the set was about as high as the ceiling here, and you could just see the front of the pod. This going from the floor up with the sides of the emergency entrance, but from the subjective and the camera point of view, it thought it was this way. This was in order to get the weightless effect. So in other words, when you see the movie, it looks like I'm blown right at you this way, but actually, they used gravity. That's how I was blown toward the camera. So they had a little cutout there, and I had to be dropped free fall. And it stopped within an inch or two of the lens. And because I had forgotten my helmet, they couldn't use a stunt double. So what they did was, I had one piano wire attached between my legs, but my body hid the wire from the camera because it was this way. So that piano wire was woven into a rope that went to the side of it, and parallel to that opening up there was a platform the same height with a circus roustabout who had these heavy gloves, and he had figured out and measured how long the rope should be and then tied a huge knot. And he did that several times because Kubrick wanted me to be bouncing around like this, weightless, and so I had to be dropped. Well, how this worked was, I dove headfirst toward the camera lens. And see, today would be a generated special effect. You wouldn't need to do this. And he's out of sight up there with the rope whipping through his gloved hands, and as soon as the knot reaches his fists, he jumps off the platform, and I go whipping back up to the ceiling again, and a block and tackle effect. The second his legs reach the ground, he lets go again and waits for the next knot. And thank God we did that in one take. when you see the scene, it doesn't look like it's that way. It looks like I'm blowing toward you.
Yeah, also look very closely at Keir's face when the scene's over. I think there's a moment
I
of
didn't
like,
have to act the relief.
That's a great story. Okay, let's start with the question up there.
Hello, this is for Keir. What kind of directions were you given during the scene where you turned Hal off? What ideas were you trying to convey so